I call
Mr. Speaker.
Sandra Gowdy.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to get up and speak to the Statutes Amendment Bill and commend the Minister for bringing this bill to the House, because in all the work that we do, there's still the housekeeping that has to go on, and the previous Speaker clearly doesn't understand that, and I'm disappointed that he had to say that this bill had no substance, and then followed that up by saying how good it was that the wills amendment to wills in the bill was going ahead when it was previously unable to, when introduced earlier as a Statutes Amendment Bill. So he's quite hypocritical in saying no substance and then saying some substance.
Point of order, the Honourable Rick Barker.
Point of order. That member used the word direction to a member on this side of the House, which is unparliamentary.
Yes.
She accused the member of being hypocritical.
Sure.
I think the member should withdraw and apologise.
Yes, the member cannot use those phrases, and I'll ask the member to exactly that. Withdraw and apologise.
Happy to withdraw and apologise.
Sandra Gowdy, you have the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so, as I said, that the previous Speaker talked about the bill having no substances, and then said how he was pleased to see that the amendments to the wills provisions in the bill were taking place. And so I was quite intrigued by that contradiction of terms and sentiment. So I'm delighted that we're making these amendments to these bills, because we have to do the housekeeping that was required for legislation, and that's why I support the Statutes Amendment Bill.
The Honourable Rick Barker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to follow Sandra Gowdy, and I want to actually just pick up on a couple of things. Firstly, being in government is about choices, about making choices about where money is spent, about how parliamentary time is used, and about strategic direction. And what we're being told by Sandra Gowdy is that now is the ideal time for making a choice to do housekeeping. This is the most important thing that we need to do now, is housekeeping. And as Sandra Gowdy was speaking, a phrase that came to my head, a saying that my grandmother had to me, was that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Nero fiddled while Rome burned. And here we have, as we are sitting in this House, allegedly on Tuesday, hundreds of young New Zealanders going out into the workforce, facing the bleak prospect of being placed on the unemployment scrap heap. In South Auckland, we have families, 1, 2 and 3 families living in the same house. 20 people living in a house. People living in garages. People stacked up in bunks all around the garages. We have people in Christchurch facing a grim prospect of living in a broken house with winter coming. And in the middle of all these major decisions, we have the government, as a matter of urgency, considering the Statutes Amendment Bill. And we have some really fabulous pieces of important strategic thinking. For example, Part 17, protected conservation area, we're going to change Saddlebank Island and make it Saddleback Island.
Fantastic.
Well, I'm sure the poor people of South Auckland will go to bed happier tonight, warm, comfortable, as they pull the blanket up to their neck and cuddle into their teddy bear saying, I know this government's got my interests at heart. We're going to correct the name of the island. It's going to be Saddleback. But even more, when they think about that, they'll be even further buoyed up. They'll wake up in the morning full of hope and optimism for a new dawn, because we're going to change the Wild Animal Control Act. We are going to amend the word tar, spelt T-A-H-R, to tar, spelt T-A-H-R. Now, this is big. This is really big. This is really big. And I have to say, when you come to the House and you see this, you understand the vision of this government. It has its eyes standing up on the bridge, looking over the horizon, scanning the horizon, looking to ensure the good ship New Zealand is navigated way past those swirling whirlpools, past the rocks which would consume the ship New Zealand, and is navigating us past all of these stormy seas, because we are now going to correct the Wild Animal Control Act, and we're going to correctly spell tar. T-A-H-R. Well, I want to say, Mr Speaker, that yes, it's important to do some housekeeping, but you have to ask yourself the question whether this is in fact the appropriate time to do it. But there's some other interesting things in this bill. And I'm really intrigued by a number of them, Mr Speaker. I made some notes on here. I see that we're going to make amendments to the Marriage Act.
That's marvellous.
Well, is this to promote more marriages, make them more difficult? I'm not sure what the thing is. About offshore marriages? There's something in this that people who are foreign nationals coming here who don't need a certificate and be labelled a New Zealand citizen. I wonder what's promoting the National Party's concern in this. Maybe they should explain this to us. We also have some other parts about social security and retirement and limited partnerships and so on. And I just ask myself, what is the importance or the value of these when we've got a major economic crisis on our hands? We have had a sequence of major financial crashes. South Canterbury Finance, AMI, and here we are making tinkering changes to the legislation. What is the government doing to ensure that the place is well run and tied up, apart from put more and more taxpayers' money at risk? And I ask the drafter of this legislation, where is the strategic vision? What is it that we're trying to do to improve the well-being of New Zealanders? We are also going to be making changes in the Civil Defence and Emergency Act. Oh, I think these are probably a good thing. But when we're thinking about the Civil Defence and Emergency, why isn't this House consumed not just with the passing of legislation, but the very important issues that underpin it? We have a major boom going to happen in construction, and what are we doing in this House to talk about how we may, in fact, get the workforce to undertake that work? Where is the discussion about training young New Zealanders, those on the unemployment scrap heap, to have the opportunity to get the skills to undertake the work? We all know we should be doing this work now. Young people should be taken on today to give their basic training, should be given their education today, or should have started last week, but no activity has been undertaken. Yet we are worried sick about being able to make sure we have our sequence of plans in order and in the right process. Well, I want to say this is another example of Nero fiddling while the house burned. Mr Speaker, there are other changes in here to justice legislation and to the Judiciary Amendment Act. And I'm really intrigued as to why it is appearing in the Statutes Amendment Bill number 2 and is not in the justice bills which came before the House. We have just finished debating a justice bill. Some weeks ago we just debated for the first reading for a justice bill. And these provisions could have been incorporated into that legislation. But we have it in a piecemeal process. Instead of having one justice bill, we now have 3. And I have to ask the question, Mr Speaker, what is happening within the organisation of the National Party that it can't get its legislative program tidied up? Why are we debating 3 bills when there could have been simply 1? Why are select committees going to consider 3 bills when there could have been 1? Why are the public being asked to put submissions in on 3 bills when there could have been 1? And why, if they wish to speak to their submissions, do they have to come to the House of Representatives 3 times, attend 3 select committees to have 3 presentations when they could have been 1? But I think the doozy of all of them, Mr Speaker, the doozy of all of them here is in the changes to the Board of Railways. Change to the Board of Railways. We're going to increase the number of board members by a Statutes Amendment Bill, and we're going to increase it because they've got an increase of workload over the next 10 years. Well, what is the message that Bill English has been sending to the state servants in the last few months? He has been telling them that they're going to have to do more with less. More with less. But when it comes to the management class, they're going to get more for less. It's exactly the reverse of this, and it's almost like Bill English's tax cuts. When you have more, you get more. When you have less, you get less. And so this shows, I think, reflects the National Party's attitude to it. Now, if the government was serious about expecting more for less out of the public servants, It should have said to the Board of Directors, no, we're not going to give you more directors. You guys get paid a very, very good salary and we expect you to step up to the mark. Or, as the Honourable Paula Bennett says, step up. Step up. Do the job. Step up. And if you can't do it, move on. Well, I want to say to them that the Board of Directors have obviously complained about there being overworked, too hard, too many reports, and by the way, we don't have enough people around the boardroom for a very enjoyable morning tea, so give us a few more mates. Well, I just think this is a very poor signal. If we are genuinely talking about difficult and constrained times, if we are talking about the rest of New Zealand having to work harder to make ends meet, well then what's wrong with the Board of Directors doing with the same number of people more work? And what is so difficult about a 10-year plan? This hasn't been explained by the Honourable Nathan Guy. I would want to know what justifies such a significant increase in the number of board members when the rest of the public service and the New Zealand public in general are working harder for less. That's the message this government has done, but for its own people, the directors who support them, no doubt, they are going to make sure that they have not only more directors, but more directors' fees at greater cost. Well, I think every group of cleaners in New Zealand would like to see an extra 2 cleaners on the job for the same thing, because they've got a big 10-year plan. I think every group of carpenters on building sites would like to see a few more carpenters to lighten the load, a little bit more work, and I think that every other industry would like to see a few more people added to it.
Sorry to interrupt, the honourable member. Time has expired.
Okay.
The question.
Mr. Speaker.
I call Rauhui Kātani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.